Welcome to CBC Connect, your connection to smarter banking and a stronger community. I'm Matt Malone, and today we're here to introduce you to our brand new podcast. Discuss a variety of banking topics as related to CBC Bank, and just spend some time breaking down the impact of our bank within this community. Whether you're opening your first checking account or you're interested in learning more about making big banking decisions in the current economy, we'll discuss these and many more practical topics each month on CBC Connect. So the plan for this podcast is to release it on a monthly basis. And what we'd like to do is offer up some practical banking knowledge with a variety of different topics. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things, including today, we're just going to kind of introduce the podcast and talk a little more about, some things that we'll be discussing over the next few months. We'll be talking about housing and mortgage. We'll be talking about bank fraud. We'll be talking about our connection within the community service, banking basics. That'll be one of our upcoming episodes. So we're excited about that. And each time that we get together to have this podcast, we're going to have a special guest from CBC Bank, or maybe even the community, for some future episodes to talk about these practical topics. And what better way to start off the CBC Connect podcast than to have the man himself in the chair, Mr. Ryan Warren, President and CEO of Commercial Banking Company. You'll hear us say CBC. That's what we call ourselves. Of course, that stands for Commercial Banking Company. And Ryan, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Excited about it. Thank you, Matt.
Looking forward to this. This is something that we've been talking about for a little bit, and we're going to keep it. We're going to try and keep this thing short. I know that some of these podcasts that come out, they can be 30 minutes long, an hour long. This is going to be a little 10-minute, maybe 15-minute snapshot of the bank and CBC in some kind of way, and something that hopefully you can maybe listen to on your commute in from work, whether you're driving in from work one morning, and you can step away from having listened with some kind of new practical banking knowledge. And Ryan's going to be here to talk to us a little bit today, just kind of about the history of CBC Bank, and again, a couple of practical banking knowledge, opening new accounts, some early stages of banking knowledge that he can incorporate into the podcast with us. CBC has been around for a long time, Ryan. I know that you and I both know this. We were talking about right before we went on. Let's see, 2029 is in 4 years, and the bank opened in 1929. So we're coming up on 100 years here in a few short years. It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. It's amazing, too, that someone started a bank in 1929, right before the Great Depression, and it made it through. So that says a lot about just the foundation of this place.
Well, I know that, of course, CBC, we've got 5 branches throughout our region. We've got one in Moultrie. We've got one in Tifton. We've got a branch in Hayhira as well, which we're really proud of. Hayhira, the first one.
The original branch, Hayhira.
The original branch.
That's right.
And then on Baytree Road, which is really nice to have one over there, one of our branches in close proximity to Valdosta State University, which I know is near and dear to your heart as it is mine. And then, of course, our main branch, which is here on North Valdosta Road, and that's where we're going to be recording these episodes. But one of the things that we're really proud of with CBC Bank is our engagement with the community, and how, our opportunity to have a connection and build relationships with people throughout this community. I know that's important to you, and I know it's important to the bank.
It is, banking in general, and specifically community banking, is so important, because to be successful in this field, you've got to be woven into the fiber of the community you serve. And a lot of times that sounds real simple. It sounds real cliched, but when you think about, if we're in Dover, Delaware, if we're in New York City or wherever our headquarters, it's hard for management and the people making strategic decisions to understand South Georgia and, what goes on here, and what better way to understand South Georgia than the decision makers and the owners being people who are from here, who live here, who work here, who send their kids to school here, who go to church here. We are a true community bank. Now, it is sometimes difficult for small banks to offer the goods and services that some of the bigger banks do. So there's always the longing to grow and to be able to bring about more products and services and to better serve your community. But there's a fine balance between still being a community bank and being someone who can deliver all of that. And CBC kind of really fits right into that window. We're a larger community bank. We're, serving throughout South Georgia. We have, a lot of resources as a bank with fintech and all the things that now, are such a key part of our industry. But also every one of our people here in our markets know the people in their market. They live here. Our ownership knows the people in this market. They know what it's like, they know the dangers and the things that we face in South Georgia, economically and socially, and all the ways that, that ownership needs to know they're here. And same thing with management. Again, we're not in the Northeast. We're not in Atlanta even. We're not in, Washington, D.C. We're here right here in Valdosta.
Well, let's talk about this. We said we were going to try and keep this thing short, and it's just rolling along here. I'm looking at our clock, and it happens. No, it's great stuff. Let's talk about, like I said, I want to go away with something that people can use in a very practical way. Let's jump right in here. What's one myth or misunderstanding about banks that you wish more people understood?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I think one of the myths that I see is that the small banks now, or the community banks, can't do what the big banks can do. About 10, 15 years ago in our industry, one of the big concerns was fintech and all of the things that are the community banks going to be able to keep up? And is fintech going to put the community banks out of business? Are the Chases and the Bank of Americas of the world going to squeeze us out with their ability to come in with technology and just take over the world? And honestly, that was a fear. And what has happened has almost been the opposite of that. What it's done is it allowed the community banks to actually have more of a reach through the fintech products that exist, all of the mobile banking and digital banking and all the things that now exist. They've leveled the playing field almost for the community banks. I give a little quick example. When I was going off to college back, 30 years ago, parents would actually have to go find a bank in Athens or in Auburn or in Tallahassee, that there was also one in Valdosta or one in their hometown, so that the parents could put money in the kid's bank account that was in both towns. Well, now that's not the case anymore. 30 years later, we're sitting here, and my daughter lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and she still has her checking account here at CBC. Yeah. And it's the availability through technology to not have to physically be in the bank, but also the benefit of knowing the people in your hometown, knowing who to call if you need it. It's the best of both worlds almost. I think that's why the community banks are thriving right now. Yeah,
no doubt. I mean, it's those options that open up. It's just things that weren't available before, and they are very much so now. Let's talk about if someone wants to get started or improve their banking setup. Let's, two different scenarios there. Maybe somebody who's really just kind of maybe a young adult. I think about my daughter who just graduated high school, or maybe somebody who has already, they've got the checking account, they've got the savings account. Maybe address both of those. I don't know, but what's a small step that they can take today that would be a wise thing to do? Sure. if they fell into either one of those categories?
I think the most important thing someone can do is they start making a financial plan or making any financial decision, whether it's someone really young who's trying to get some direction, or whether it's someone who's right on the cusp of starting a small business or building a home. What I would say people need to do is don't be afraid to call and ask a question and talk about it with someone who's a subject matter expert before you get too far along. Again, whether you're building a home, whether you're starting a business, a lot of times you may be intimidated to call and talk about that because maybe you don't have it all together yet. But that's the whole point of get with someone, and even inside the bank, we have people who specialize in different areas. We have people who specialize, like Skip with SBA and some of the things he's done, or whether it's Taylor with some of, apartments or commercial lending, or whether it's the retail side and home building. We've got people in the bank who have really done those things for years and years and years. And if you're thinking about going down one of those roads, go ahead and call early and talk to one of those people. And what it might help you do is not waste time going so far down one path where you have to back up and turn around and go back, and get that direction, and don't wait too long to do it.
I know when I was younger, that was one thing that I had a lot of trouble with. We've got the investment center here at CBC, which we're, very proud of, and to have that, wealth management option for folks to engage with. And sometimes you feel like you have to have all your ducks in a row before you go talk to somebody, exactly. Or it might be embarrassing.
You don't want to
something
look
like
stupid.
that.
You don't want to,
but that's not the case.
Not at all.
I've heard several of our employees here at CBC talk about that. About, hey, don't be afraid to come talk to us. We're here to help.
Right.
To get you moving in the right direction, and that's not what it's about. I mean, that's what we're here for. So, and I think that's something that we all take a lot of pride in. We hear all the time customers talking about being called by name when they walk in through the door and being addressed, not just as a number, but who they are. And that's, again, something we take a lot of pride in. And I think that's great advice for anybody who's not quite sure where to go next, just looking for what to do next and what steps to take and things like that. So we're out of time almost.
Wow. Okay.
This is great. I mean, it's like I said, the idea was to deliver some practical knowledge, and I think we were able to do that today. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about in episodes moving forward. Again, this is going to be a monthly thing. Our next episode, our second episode, is going to be about banking basics. We touched on a little bit of that today, but we're going to dig more into that. And our guest, who I know many of our listeners will recognize the name, Andy Griffin, one of our young lenders. He's going to be on with us, so that'll be a lot of fun. Andy and I always enjoy talking with each other. And then our third episode is going to be digital banking, mobile banking, and we, again, touched on that today a little bit about the options that it opens up, and you don't necessarily
digital
have to
banking is banking now.
It is, absolutely. So we'll talk about that, and we'll have Brooke Franks on that episode. And then moving forward, like I said, we'll be talking about mortgage lending. We'll be talking about, like I said, bank fraud, which is unfortunately a very prominent issue right now. But we're looking forward to talking about these topics. We thank you for listening to CBC Connect. And if you like what you hear, if you like what you're hearing in these episodes, we encourage you to tell your friends about it. Share it with your friend if you think it's something, there's some information that they might be able to use. Again, this is CBC Connect. It's your connection to smarter banking and a stronger community. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to follow, like, or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're ready to open an account, explore loan options, get one-on-one advice, stop by your local CBC Bank branches. Again, Bay Tree Road, North Valdosta Road, Hayhire, Moultrie, or Tifton. You can also find us at CBC Bank. I'm going to say that again, at My CBC Bank on Facebook and Instagram, or you can visit us online anytime at www.cbcbank.com. Again, we thank you for listening. Keep building what matters, and we'll remain committed to you, our customer, our community.